New Zealand might be small, but man, we're innovative. And I think about the things that my team come up with, and I think, there's no way we could do that. That's something that I expected a big global portal to do. But actually, they really think it through and they work out a way to do it. And I love that about the Kiwi, the spirit. It's just really exciting to be part of that.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.
Well, greetings and welcome along to the New Zealand Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Spain, and today we have a special guest on the show, Sarah Wood, who is the Chief Executive at realestate.co.nz. Welcome along. Great to have you on the show for the first time, Sarah.
Thank you for having me here.
Maybe you can fill listeners in a little bit on where you fit into this big wide world of tech, innovation and business here.
Absolutely. So I'm running the realestate.co.nz platform. So I've been there for 4 years, and our focus has really been on evolving the platform, the website itself, the digital experience, mobile apps, and actually really adding some innovation to the work that we do.
Great. We'll look forward to hearing more about that during the show. Before we delve into sort of the local and global news topics, a big thank you to our show partners, to 1NZ, 2 Degrees, Spark, HP, and Gorilla Technology. Really appreciate their support, not only of the New Zealand Tech Podcast, but of the broader tech and innovation ecosystems here in New Zealand. So looking locally, there's always a fair bit sort of going on when it comes to the tech world in New Zealand. But a couple of things that I guess caught the attention this week. One is the Aotearoa Aerospace Academy, and look, this just seems like a really good thing to see that aerospace, New Zealand. Launching, and this is something that's is headed up by Miranda Satterthwaite, if I've pronounced that correctly, and she's trained in NASA centres in the US, and range of experience there that is going to, I guess, help our youngsters in New Zealand to get inspired and get some learning that will help them, potentially become, involved in working in the aerospace and the space sector in New Zealand in the longer term. So yeah, exciting to see these sort of new initiatives that will, help, foster that future that we want for New Zealand, where more of our people are able to work in those kind of innovative areas and areas where we need more skills in order to grow our export revenues, and of course they're good from all sorts of perspectives.
It is really exciting to see, and I think as well, New Zealanders are so creative in the way that they think, in the way that they problem solve, and it's neat to see that kind of investment in New Zealand and giving Kiwis that opportunity. I think younger people, as they head into the big wide world today and what they do after school, after university, to have more industries like that, New Zealand is just brilliant. Like, it keeps Kiwis here.
Yeah, and not too far away now, September is the New Zealand Aerospace Summit coming up in Christchurch. So if that's an area of interest, then you should get registered. One other thing that caught my attention was RNZ providing some coverage around Australian police suspending use of a vehicle tracking system that gets used here in New Zealand by police, and that there's a bit of details on why this happened in Australia, and the company behind it, Aura, who Auror, if anyone's wanting to look them up. So yeah, local business. And this is technology for tracking vehicles through license plate recognition. The image actually that was at the top of the story kind of caught my attention, because it's something that I've been noticing recently, is more and more sort of street corners, and even not on your street corner, just in the middle of as you're walking along, you just do see so many cameras. And my understanding is what happened here in Australia was that things had kind of maybe moved a little bit too fast in terms of implementing technology, and it hadn't gone through the appropriate sort of, checks and balances, the higher up in the organisation. And I guess as we see this sort of proliferation on, varying surveillance technologies, there's a whole bunch of risks in terms of, well, what happens with this data? How long is it being kept? Are all the entities that are involved complying appropriately? And, I guess if we look at cybersecurity, I mean, in that area, it's very, very hard to keep things as secure as they should be. All sorts of reasons why organisations sort of fall behind. And we've seen so many sort of privacy breaches with past cyber incidents. So I sort of feel like it's time that we started talking a bit more around all these cameras that we see. And it's like, well, is there somewhere you can go online and look up and go, what is this camera? There's a camera it might be outside your house, could be outside your workplace. Just understand, well, whose camera is it? What's it being used for? How long's the data stored for? We need that sort of transparency because if it's not there, I guess the chance of things being managed appropriately and the appropriate sort of governance practices in place are probably less likely to be happening.
The speed of change is just phenomenal at the moment around the world, and especially in the tech space. And I do think that there's definitely going to be pressure on the government to look at how quickly they turn around different, whether it's legislation or just oversight, to try and ensure things are managed properly. And there is obviously a big onus on business as well to make sure they are doing the right thing by consumers and by people, and making sure that the data privacy laws and rules are really being adhered to in a really way that's thoughtful and really ethical.
Yeah, look, it's going to be a journey. There's definitely, challenges with getting the legislation and things to kind of line up and to suit everybody. And one of the other things we've been reading about is regulation in China and the guidance that they've been putting in place around some of these things and versus New Zealand versus UK and Australia and Europe with sort of GDPR. There's kind of all sorts of moves in different directions, and in some places we're seeing moves that might be very, very fast from a government perspective. But in terms of what governments are sometimes enacting, might not really line up with kind of what's good and appropriate for the broader populace. In some cases, and in other cases, it's it's in the right direction, but is it enough? So there's how do you find that sort of right balance? And I think we're probably going to be dealing with these challenges probably forever, because I don't think there always is going to be a clear answer. And we've been reading about the UK where they're pushing in legislation that would effectively kind of break what we expect of encrypted communications, because the government is saying, well, hey, if we want to get into something that's been encrypted, we need to be able to read that message, and well, you can't have end-to-end encryption, and so the privacy gets broken. And I think Apple have been threatening to pull iMessage out of the UK if the government proceeds, and that will probably be the case with a whole range of other things. And it's that challenge. You can't please everybody, but you have to make some call on these things.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the key thing is actually speed. It's the ability to turn around decisions, ability to see what's changing, being really connected in with industry that's making, that are making these changes, or companies, and so that the legislation is or whatever governance is needed can be enacted kind of quickly as well. It's interesting. The example you've given out of the UK is really interesting. It'll be interesting to see whether that flows through into other countries as well.
Yeah, we're often seeing the same things kind of come up, but in maybe a different context and a slight different window of time, because we were talking about this on the show maybe 5 years ago, where Australia was suggesting somewhat similar types of things as what we're now hearing about on the UK side. And I remember different commentators responses to it and would just say, well, this is ridiculous. They don't understand the technology. It's impossible to do. And, to a degree it is if you kind of, leave the technology in place as it's designed. So really interesting to see how it plays out. Righty-ho. Now, also on the New Zealand front, I see that there's a player in the property space here, Keyhook, who have launched a little AI chatbot on their site, put that into beta. And it's just interesting to see more and more organisations that are dabbling with AI. Of course, chatbots have been around for years, but I guess as we get so used to ChatGPT and the like, it's interesting to see how local organisations are starting to apply some of that technology, whether it's to just get some extra attention and be sort of first to market with something, or whether they're genuinely solving real problems, and it does vary. I did jump in to have a little bit of a look at what Keyhook are doing there, and you have to go through and register in order to kind of get started. So to me, that was kind of an immediate. Well, that's surely you could even do that, through your chatbot to ask. Why have a whole kind of registration process? But anyway, So to me, that's like, well, that's going to immediately reduce how many people are going to use their technology. I guess from their perspective, if everyone registers, then they've got everybody's details and the password and so on. So that's valuable to them, but it's from a user experience perspective, questionable whether it's necessarily the right approach.
Yeah, look, I think the simpler you can make the process for someone to sign up or to join, or so it's that balance of how much information or access do you give somebody up front? Yeah, it's an interesting question.
Yep.
And I will say, we are seeing globally, AI being used a lot in the real estate space to simplify processes and simplify the amount of information. When you think about, how often people are filling out forms and how much that information is replicated. So it's definitely being used to simplify that experience for users and really and make it much easier and just quicker.
Yeah, so what I did throw at the AI chatbot to sort of see how helpful it would be after I had registered, it came up and said, "Kia ora, what would you like to learn about New Zealand tenancy laws?" So it's quite specific in terms of what it wants to provide guidance on. The example I made up was, I want to leave my tenancy before the term ends. Is that okay? And it sort of basically has sort of come up with not a too long detail, but it looks probably very, very similar to what you would get out of just using ChatGPT type tool. Yeah, it's it's not too complicated and so on, and quite easy to read. So good on them if that helps some people and it builds up some extra clientele. Then why not? And they're serving on both the perspective of someone who's a tenant, but also someone that's in property ownership or management side. So really interesting. Now on to global news. It wouldn't be another week if there wasn't something from Elon Musk to talk
absolutely.
about. It's kind of crazy. There is always something going on. This week, it's that Twitter is kind of doing this somewhat rapid rebrand, and we have been hearing about Twitter becoming X for a little while, but it's a little bit hard to get your head around Musk's thinking at times, but this one seems to have happened very quickly. And I saw somebody sharing on Twitter, or is it X? And do we call them tweets now? I'm not sure, or are they X's anyway, or Zeets? But an image of the Twitter signage being pulled off the building in San Francisco, I think, on Monday. So
I saw the projected X on the Twitter building
yes,
in the night, almost like a Batman kind of mark.
Right,
which
looked pretty cool.
I thought it was pretty cool. I think Elon Musk is amazing in that sort of almost stunts that have just incredible cut through from a news standpoint. So really interesting to see what he does. And again, I try and work out what sort of things that he could be working on, or how I could see it envisioning the platform coming to life. But he's full of surprises, and he'll have a master plan, and I can't wait to actually see what sits behind it over time.
Well, yeah, I mean, he uses and this is probably a big reason why he wanted to buy the platform. Because he kind of uses it as his communication.
He does
to the media and to the public. But of course, Twitter has always been a place where media have flocked to, shall we say? I don't know if we can use these sorts of terms in the future. So you do wonder, whether we will see others that sort of end up with the same sort of influence that Musk has on social media in the future. But when you think of, an entrepreneur, someone that's very wealthy, someone, that his businesses affect, a lot of people or of interest to a lot of people in one way or another. But there's nobody else, that I can think of in the tech sector or elsewhere that just seems to be able to get that same level of attention. And even, putting aside his businesses, it's just, it is an incredible reach that he has through, I guess, what we're now calling X.
Yeah, it's I can't wait to see that, to see how that one unfolds. And, he is the absolute master of stunts. And, I remember living in the US when Tesla launched and seeing them in the local, the cars in the local mall, which was just at the time seemed so strange, but at the same time I remember thinking it's so brilliant, right? The malls are full of people, especially in the east coast of the US in the winter, when it's pretty cold outside. And here are all the Teslas all lined up. It was he's impressive.
Yeah, and I mean you want people to see and interact with your product, and it certainly has been very, very successful for Apple as well, having their stores and in the same malls across the US, and I think that's something that worked very well for Tesla. Microsoft not so much. They shut down all their stores after launch. And I remember being in one particular mall that had the Apple store, the Tesla showroom, I think they call them, and a Microsoft one, and two of those companies, it's worked very well for. The other one, not so much. So, it'll be really interesting to see where things go as Twitter transitions to X Corp. We've heard from Musk before around, hey, I had all these dreams for PayPal. They were never, they never really came off. And of course, his entity that sort of, merged with PayPal and became PayPal. Was originally X.com. And so, here he is back with X.com today. And, I think there will be some interesting times ahead. They are starting to talk about some possibilities of where or what X,
where and what
X
it might
becomes.
become. Yeah.
So, yes, it is. It's going to be some interesting times, and I'm sure X will be the place to look if you want to keep up with what's going on,
especially on Elon Musk's world.
Yeah, but looks like that they've turned on their monetization recently, which of course was something that Twitter never had, and there is kind of this potential push, and I don't know who can pull it off. Is this something that Musk can pull off? But this idea of maybe competing with YouTube as well.
Interesting.
And when you think of YouTube, it's a sort of frustrating experience if you're not dropping money on a subscription because there's so much advertising. Yet you end up paying so many subscriptions for all sorts of things. So, and of course, Twitter or X also are encouraging a subscription there. So I don't know. will follow that, and we will no doubt be talking about Musk again at some stage within the next few weeks.
I'm sure.
Just a quick one that came up, a few weeks back now, but it had been on the list, hadn't squeezed it in, was this news that a former executive from Samsung has been accused of trying to clone an entire chip fabrication plant on Chinese soil. So it's fascinating, some of the sort of espionage and crazy things that kind of go on with the tech sector because of the big amounts of money involved. And of course, we've seen variations on that theme with people from Apple that have turned up working in another country, people from Tesla and so on, and suddenly, someone's got XYZ like technology, and something's being built out of it.
It seems pretty
most
incredible.
often in China.
Yeah, it seems pretty incredible.
Yeah, so these things continue. And also on the China front, I think we mentioned a little bit earlier, but we're hearing that China are mandating that AI must follow the core values of socialism. So this was sort of the headline from The Verge this week. But, they're moving I guess, faster than most other countries in terms of trying to shape, what happens with artificial intelligence within China, and of course, Great Firewall of China, and all these other things around technology in China. There does tend to be a fair level of structure around how technologies get used there, isn't there?
That's going to be an interesting one, especially when you look at what's going to happen globally in the next 2 years. The amount of change and the investment that's going on is just going to be so rapid. It'll be interesting to see in 2 years' time what's happening on the global stage, and then what is actually going to be available in China.
Yeah, and look, I mean, they are such a big player when it comes to the tech sector, and growing, so quickly. We've seen this very fast, transition for their role within the automobile industry.
Incredibly innovative.
I don't know what the percentage is now in terms of the new vehicles coming into New Zealand, and what percentage of them are made in China, but certainly out of the electric vehicles. The two big players are Tesla, who make theirs in China, and BYD, and there's others too. But largely that whole sector has moved. And 5 years ago, I think there wouldn't have been too many Kiwis buying a Chinese vehicle, but it probably won't be too long. And it would be very unusual to buy a vehicle that's made, probably anywhere else.
Yeah, it'd be interesting to see.
Yeah. Big changes afoot, and of course, so much of our technology that already comes from China. One scam I thought just worth mentioning that caught wind of in the last few weeks was, and this came through from a tweet. And someone tweeted that their Delta Airlines flight had got cancelled, and so they went to call the phone number for the Delta customer service where they were, which was JFK Airport, John F. Kennedy Airport in New York. And so Google comes up with the local listing for that. So they were trying to get that rather than the main, 1-800 number, which was absolutely swamped, and they didn't want to be waiting. So they thought, we'll try the local number, which seems to make sense. But scammers had basically managed to get this listing onto Google. So you've got this local business listing with the a JFK number for Delta Airlines, but it certainly wasn't going through to the genuine staff. And interestingly, what was mentioned was this wasn't the case just for Delta. It was actually a whole range of other airlines. Air France, I think, Qantas. A whole sort of laundry list of airlines kind of caught up in in this. And, it's just a reminder that there are new scams coming along all the time, and we have to really pay attention. It's also a reminder of how much we rely on the big tech players and the likes of Google to really do a good job, because, a mistake like that, it could add up to cost consumers millions and millions of dollars in a short space of time.
Yeah.
Yet the downside for Google, in most cases from a direct financial impact, is very, very low. Maybe a bit of bad press because, a few people are talking about it.
That one's incredible because you really trust Google as a trusted source, and it's to have it misrepresented or hacked in that way is quite frightening. And I know someone recently that had a similar thing when they were putting their details into what they thought was Esther to get the pass into the US.
Yes,
and they put it into it was actually a fake site. And revealed their credit card details and their passport details. And it wasn't until they went back in to just make sure that it had been confirmed, they realised that they'd been scammed.
Yeah, and it's easy to fall for those things when you're in a hurry or just not paying attention, and that's probably all of us at one point or another. So
true.
But something we have to keep educating folks on and trying to minimise those risks. And one more thing is Microsoft 365. They've announced their Copilot product now, which is the AI assistant for, to work with the Office applications. And so, you can get the AI to draft up your proposal or, prepare a PowerPoint for you and whatnot. So that's coming through. The interesting thing is the pricing. So landing at US $30, which on current exchange rates would be 48 New Zealand dollars, excluding GST. And I think there's going to be probably a range of perspectives here, because there were some people that just thought, it's just another feature for Office. It's all going to kind of be built into your 365 existing subscription. It's not going to cost me a cent. Looking forward to them adding it. Other people saying, well, they could kind of charge what they like, which was one of the discussions I've thrown out with a few folks in terms of, well, if this is going to save you a huge amount of time or allow you to get much, much better results, then that's sort of the sort of thing that a technology company can think about what it's worth and land on a figure that's at the higher end. And I guess one of the figures I threw out there was, look, they could do this at $100 a month, and there would still be people that would buy it.
That would still buy it.
What they've got to sort of weigh up is how much of this is going to create frustration and have people not bothering to sign up and so on. It's certainly at the probably the higher end, I think, of maybe what a lot of folks were expecting, because there'll be a lot of organisations that aren't actually spending at that level on their existing Microsoft 365. So they might be paying more for the Copilot capability than for the software. But if it delivers the productivity results, then I think people will be signing up.
Yeah, and it would depend on how good it is as well.
That's true.
But,
so true.
It's interesting to see lots of companies that are putting in, obviously rules in place around how these types of tools are used. But, how does that change when it's Microsoft?
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens in that landscape.
Yeah, and look, there's a bit more behind the scenes. There's the sort of Bing chat for enterprise and so on. So there's a few more pieces to the puzzle. We won't delve into that today, because I want to hear about realestate.co.nz and what you've been up to, Sarah. It sounds like you've had really a lot going on since you joined the business about 4 years ago. So walk us through that journey and what drew you to join realestate.co.nz and kind of what you'd been up to before that, because you've spent a chunk of time outside New Zealand and the US, of course, and time working on varying things here.
So, my background was originally in marketing, and then it sort of moved into operations. I worked over in the US. We were based there for 7 years, and I have to say that's shaped a lot of how I think now. One thing that people sort of say to me, what was it like working over there? And while it was, it was brilliant in lots of ways, the thing that I learned the most was actually just the breadth of their thinking. So they really they think extremely wide without the restrictions. And, it's something that I try really hard to get my team to do, which is, yes, you might have restricted budget on this, but actually let's just start with, what is possible, and really, and then we can resolve the budget piece later or resolve how we do it later. And I think that that's something that Kiwis are really good at doing. So just sort of that mix. I worked for NZME, so I was in digital ventures there. And then I came across to realestate.co, really because it was a great challenge to change a product. And, it's the site itself predates Google, so it's been around for a long time. It's really loved by Kiwis, and it was really a chance to change something and rebuild the tech and change the experience for property searchers.
Yeah. So what state was the business at in terms of size and scale and so on, and what are the things that have that have changed over that period of time?
So I'll say, 4 years ago, there were 24 of us and sort of 6 in total in product and development. So it's pretty small. And now that's, the total team sits over 60. So we have, we've really invested in that product and tech space, and we've rebuilt our sort of core technology. We've rebuilt the front end site. We've rebuilt our mobile app, and we've just added in just a lot of capability around, how do we manage customers? How do we manage sort of data and big data sets? How do we add information? How do we really refine that experience for consumers that are searching?
Yeah. Oh, that's good. And a lot of people will be possibly more familiar with Trade Me from a sort of property perspective. So how do you deal with that? Because and Trade Me has kind of changed and evolved, been slowly kind of dropping down the from an importance perspective as a as a tool in New Zealand sort of.
So what I'd say is that we are a real specialist destination. So you only come to us to search for property.
Yep.
And, our focus has been entirely on search, so coming to site, what's that experience look like? How do we serve that information? How do we get, what are the tools and things that we need to create a better experience? Like, you're only transacting property on average in New Zealand about every 6.5 years. So people are prepared to put up with a high level of pain for that transaction. But at the same time, it's also an enormously stressful time, and so we can make it a really great experience by making it easy for people to find that place that they love, and also serving them content that they might not necessarily be looking for, but it sits within that parameter. The example I use is we have a carousel that sits on the top of our search results page. I was looking in one area and I actually saw a property in the neighbouring suburb that came up as part of that. And we looked very, very closely, and it was just that same, that idea you get quite focused on, I want to live in this suburb, and I search the suburb, but actually 2 streets over is another suburb that has the perfect property that sits within that range. So,
yeah. And I don't know what you can share on sort of, what's been happening for you sort of, traffic-wise and so on with all of the things that you're doing?
Yeah, so we've had some really good pickups in our traffic, and certainly in the mobile app space. So we've had a 40% growth in our mobile app traffic in the last year, which is incredible. So a huge amount of work has gone into that, obviously, and, just people are more likely to inquire on a property through a mobile app. They want that sort of access in their pocket. So that's been really important. You might have seen, we've recently just released an AI tool, so we're using that to pull out floor plans that often get fed through to our site and as an image, as a photograph of a house.
Yep.
So the AI tool is actually pulling that out and pulling it under a separate floor tab on the site. We know that the key things that people are wanting to know is, essentially what do we think a property will sell for? They're interested in price, and the second one is they're interested in floor plans. But it's actually, the number of listings that have floor plans on is actually quite low. So this is a great way of actually pulling it out, making it a real feature and accessible.
So you basically you go through what you've got access to in terms of imagery, and you're able to
there's an AI tool that actually just can identify them and pulls them out separately.
Yeah.
So we're looking at lots of different AI sort of solutions and things that they can do for our business. And the other one that we're working on at the moment is from a sort of business operations standpoint. We have a lot of listing content that comes in, and we have upgrades obviously on our site where people are advertising with us. And so, we have, we're in the process of training up, our little AI robot, which is going to basically pull a listing out and pull out that booking, do the booking, email the customer, and then, if the listing hasn't gone live, then it will actually follow back up with the customer. So it actually takes a whole lot of work that's done, manually by somebody who's manually going through and making all of these actions happen. And it does it automatically, and it's going to just streamline the operational side of our business, which is so critical. Someone sort of said to me, does that mean you're going to reduce staff? Well, no, it actually doesn't. In this instance, it actually means that our staff can focus on, a higher value interaction and add value to our customers, not just be there, working through bookings or fixing up listings or things that haven't gone right.
Yep. What's been the process to bring in AI to really decide what to focus on? Because when you're developing websites, mobile apps, anything technology wise, there's always so many different directions and things you can focus on.
So we always start with what problem we're trying to solve, and so everybody be really clear on what the why is, and with the the operational piece that I talked about before, it was actually, how do we streamline this and speed it up, and how do we create, the best customer experience back to our agents that are working with us. So it sits in that direction. In the same way with the floor plans, we knew the floor plans were an issue. It was something that our user researcher told us that consumers were looking for. And, they don't want to flick through 30 photos to find that floor plan. They want to be able to access that. So we start with what problem we're trying to solve, and then the technology is how we solve that problem. We don't start with technology first.
And what is the makeup of your team now? What does that sort of look like in terms of the different things you've got people focused on?
So we have a pretty decent sales team now, is probably the key thing. So we've got over 15 in our sales team. We've got a pretty decent development and product team, so that'd be sort of 20 plus. We have a lot of in-house marketing capability, so we really focus on how do we drive customer engagement, what does that look like, what's the communication we're sending, how personalised can we get, and we have expertise in sort of marketing, especially in that digital space and engagement and email. So those are kind of the biggest chunks. Then obviously we have a lot of other teams that support the business, which is in customer service and data. So we're very lucky actually. We have someone who's been very ruthless with the management of our data. So we have 15 years of very structured data, and I think it will set us in good stead going forward. Just because we record things in the same way and have done for a long time, we store it in an optimal way, which, when you look at what's happening now in the world and people go, I need to organise my data, like actually somebody had the vision of that a long time ago, and we're lucky. It's an asset for us.
Beneficiary of some good work that's gone on there. That's excellent. And in terms of sort of the capabilities, one of the things that we've got used to in recent years is you can just jump on a website and get a valuation for whether it's your own property or one that you're looking at and so on. That's obviously part of the mix.
Absolutely.
What are the other sorts of things that people are coming to realestate.co.nz for, and that are maybe newer capabilities or things that
so
we've
done there's a few things. The data part of it is interesting. People will know what valuation is. We have a lot of trend data around insights for suburbs, and I think that's really interesting as well, because you can see the sold price and you can see the average asking price, and it trends over time. And I think that to look at a data point without that broader context, going back to my comment around the 15 years of data, that's helpful, right? Because we've got that trend information. And so you can actually see at the moment when the market's has been moving more slowly, but looks to be picking up, and you can see the difference between what is the average asking price versus actually what is sold. Can actually give you real time insights around what perceptions of value sit in that suburb. And on that page, it's a market insights page. You can also filter it by bedrooms, and so you can get pretty specific. So I think that's really helpful. We also launched instant notifications. So the moment a property lists, you can sign up and have it either sent to you as a push notification through mobile app. It comes into the front of your phone as a notification, or on email. And so, again, as the market picks up, as we head into spring, people want to know, especially if you're looking at closing on a property or putting an offer on a property, you want to know the moment a property is listed. And I think that's a really fantastic feature, especially when it's in push.
What's the ownership of realestate.co.nz these days? It didn't used to start out as part of the Real Estate Institute.
It is still
under that. So because there's going to be ups and downs within the sector, aren't there, that are quite natural cycles and so on. And I guess there'll be some that would that are involved in real estate that are going to really sort of struggle when the market's down, and obviously, do better when it's up. How are you impacted by those things?
So the market definitely has been challenging the last 3 months. The listing stock is down, and yes, we are industry owned. And it is challenging when listings, especially when you've got lower new listings. Plus you've got the closing element. So we are seeing, it has been really challenging, and it is cyclical, even throughout the year. What we've noticed in the last month, which has been really unusual, in the depths of winter, you actually usually have your activity reduce on a site seasonally, but we've actually seen a pickup in the activity. So inquiries, which is a key metric of engagement for us, they're up 17% for June versus last year. So that's kind of showing you there's some increased activity happening. So it's interesting, but again, spring happens, people still need to sell, they have to buy and sell for any range of reasons. And, people have been, I think there's been, people holding off buying and selling, and, I think that will change as well as the market moves.
Getting back to that sort of valuation, side of what you do.
Yes.
I think that is often kind of quite a common touch point for property owners, particularly, interest rates are up and they're like, how's my investment doing? And, I guess I've looked at these things with buying and selling property over the years. And, I guess it was sort of homes.co.nz that sort of really came in with their, free service and initially offering that. There does seem to be a fair bit of, variance between, where you go to get those numbers. How do you kind of, work to get numbers that can be as accurate as possible? And, how do you keep improving that? Or are you using somebody outside to handle that side of it?
So our estimated property value tool comes from Ryan's, and what I would say about it has a unique data set because it includes unsettled data. So that is, someone signed an agreement and they haven't actually gone through the final settlement. And so because that data at an total aggregated level is included in there, it will move more quickly with a trend. So if you think about average settlement time being, say, 2 to 3 months, it will actually show you at the moment, as the market's moving, it will give you a sense because it has that data's coming through more quickly.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Yeah.
And we're very careful to not put estimates on properties where the sort of information we feel doesn't meet the right mark in terms of accuracy.
Right.
So it might
you can put some things in place that sort of say, well, we haven't had enough sales in this year, we don't have enough data points to be confident around.
Yeah,
those
we have
numbers.
an accuracy rating. If it doesn't hit that, then it doesn't go on the listing. But in saying that, it's also a guide too. So there are lots of things that can affect a property value that, in between sales and between what's sold around them as well. So, people need to see it as a guide, but it's coming through no matter what site you use, it's coming through an automated sort of solution in most instances.
And are there others that have access to that unsettled kind of information?
No, that's
as well?
actually
So
just
that's
something that
quite
Ryan's have. Yeah, that's something that Ryan's have.
Okay. Which is Real Estate Institute, right?
That's right.
Yeah,
Real Estate Institute of New Zealand.
Yeah. Okay. Good.
Yeah.
No, I thought, that's quite an interesting thing because that means you're getting access to much, fresher data than others. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I guess there's a whole lot of maths that goes on behind the scenes to try and
they're pretty complex models.
Keep improving that sort of stuff and
absolutely.
Yeah, I guess comparing when something sells, I guess you can compare it sold for that. Our estimate was this. What does that tell us? And,
absolutely.
And so on.
It's a work in progress.
Yeah. Oh, that's really interesting. Anything else we should cover off before we finish up, Sarah?
I think that probably covers it. I want to say that it's been exciting to work on the business over the last 4 years and to make such change. It's been great to sit here today and just hear about what's happening and talk about what's happening globally. And I think that there is a lot of inspiration that can be drawn from other countries, other industries, and actually look at how do we do this in New Zealand. New Zealand might be small, but man, we're innovative. And I think about the things that my team come up with, and I think, there's no way we could do that. That's something that I expected a big global portal to do, but actually, they really think it through and they work out a way to do it. And I love that about the Kiwi, the spirit and the way that they think, and it's just really exciting to be part of that.
Yeah, there are so many possibilities in New Zealand, as you talked about before, very creative thinkers, and it'll be interesting to see where we go from here. So yeah, all the best of luck with what's next. Actually, one little question I'll throw in, and it's probably a personal interest thing of mine. But when we talked about Twitter becoming X.com, what I liked about that is it's a shorter domain name, so it's it's an easier thing to type in, which translates to this question, which is, why aren't you realestate.nz? Is that domain name not something you can get your hands on?
It's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head what the answer is. All right, but we could do. You're right. It would take out an extra 3 digits
when
or
I
something.
looked it up online, it looked as though it was kind of blocked and unavailable. So maybe a bit of mixed ownership across some of the other NZ real estate domains there. But
I do know there's a couple of URLs that are also owned out of Australia for the New Zealand market.
Okay, yeah, interesting. All right, well, it's been fabulous to have you on the New Zealand Tech Podcast. Thank you very much, Sarah, for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you, of course, to our show partners, 1NZ, 2 Degrees, Spark, HP and Gorilla Technology. And thank you for listening in, and we'll be back again next week with another episode. All right, see you then.
The New Zealand Tech Podcast, brought to you by Gorilla Technology, proactive and strategic IT.